Welcome to a kind of impromptu Writer Wednesday. I've been thinking about just like myself as a writer and where I've been, where I've come from, and all the things I've gone through. And I just kind of wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what that means. I've been thinking about like how far I've come as an author and a writer and a storyteller, and it's wild how it just and this all started when I was kind of going over uh it's a later draft. I think it's like draft 6 or 7 of a book that I have sent out to a few agents, and I'm not actively querying. I saw them on Twitter, or sorry, X, and they were looking for X, Y, and Z, and this manuscript that I've had for several years just happens to have X, Y, and Z. So I was like, hey, I will try my luck. I kind of looked into all of these agents. I think there's only like 4 or 5 of them. There's not very many over the past like several months. And I've been kind of going through that draft just to kind of maybe get it a little refresher. And it's incredible to me how much my writing has changed just from like the last time I was in that manuscript, which I think might have been 2001, not 2001, 2021, not that long ago. I'm not that old. I don't know what I was doing in 2001. It's incredible. It's wild to think how far I've come as an author, not just since 2021 with that manuscript, but since my very first manuscript that I self-published in 2016. That was a hot mess express, let me tell you right now. But I've been also been thinking about all the mistakes that I did as a baby author and as an aspiring author, and how I keep seeing new, young, aspiring authors. Hold on, I'm not clicking any of the right keys here. But I keep seeing young, aspiring authors making the same mistakes that I did. And it's in that weird place where like you're in the shoes of someone that you saw when you were like younger, like you've become like the adult, and it's a weird situation. It's like seeing the teenagers doing something that you did when you were a teenager that like you were told not to do, and now you're the one that's like looking down on them. You don't have that weird adult experience in your life? No? Cool. It's coming. I see these baby authors, these young aspiring authors, or really just not necessarily young in age, but young in like skills and talent. Like they're just starting out as an author. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're young specifically in age. But I keep seeing them make like the same mistakes with the same level of baby author arrogance that I had. And I can see it and I can point it out. And so like it's weird being on the other side. And there's so much to like being like a baby author and being in that thing that you can't really give them the advice that you now have, because there's so much of being an author and like getting out of that baby author stage that you have to learn on your own. You have to learn through experience by doing it and making mistakes and seeing the mistakes and learning from them yourself. What am I doing? I had a plan when I got in here. I went hunting for that pale garden yesterday. Why was I? I found a trial spawner doohickey. That's what I was doing. No, I need another chest for all this garbage that I keep bringing home. Oh, investigate this trial spawner. That's what I'm gonna do. For my first, excuse me, tea time. Oh, it's ginger tea. It's good, but it's also like not good at the same time. It's weird if you've ever had ginger tea. Because I wanted something warm to drink, but it's late enough that wrong keys. If I drink anything else with caffeine, I won't be able to sleep. And I like my sleeping. And if I screw up my sleep tonight, it'll screw up the whole weekend. Something I've learned from experience. So my first book, very first book, self-published. Is that not? No, I was higher up. Hold on. There it is. I self-published my first book, Devil's Blood, in 2016. However, I started putting all this information together that would later become this book, like the characters and the world building and all these little scenes and things. I think it was my sophomore year of high school, and that would have been roughly around 2000. There's not here in here. No, I need to save all my inventory for the trial spawner. But I started putting all this information together roughly around 2006. So just to put that in perspective, that was 10 years when I first started to kind of come up with these characters and the situations that they would get in, kind of the world they were in. 10 years later, 10 years of building plot and characters and all that stuff before I published that book. Now, of course, back then I was not focused on publishing. That was not my goal. I was just a sophomore in high school messing around. Oh, I forgot I messed this up. It's fine. It's not going to do any harm in the long run, and I'm too lazy to go back and fix it. That very first stage, I'm going to call it the aspiring author stage. I was in, many other people were in, and then I went, what? Was I drunk when I carved this out? Whatever. Oh. But that aspiring author phase, it's just because that's what it is. You're aspiring to be an author. You've got these big dreams of what authors do and how to become an author and how you're going to spend your time as an author. And you've had these big dreams of like writing a book and everyone loves it and it gets picked up by the best publisher and it makes millions and millions and millions of dollars. You're super famous. You make movie deals, all those sort of things, like J.K. Rowling level of famous and wealth. Not that I need a theme park after my books, that's unnecessary. There we go. But I had a point. What was my point? Oh, it's because this aspiring authors phase, when you have all these big dreams, and when I was, a little baby author, kind of putting together this first book, kind of in the later half when I kind of made that decision that I wanted to be an author, I honestly thought that I was going to be the next J.K. Rowling, in a good way. I thought my book was going to just fly off the shelves. I honestly thought that this book was going to be the best book that's ever been read. I was going to get movie deals. I was going to be so famous and wealthy. I was going to have celebrity friends. I was going to get invited to like premieres. I was going to be on magazines. I was going to be so rich that I could afford not to work. I was going to have a little cabin in the woods where I was going to live alone. That was my dream. That was my big dream. And I honestly thought that was going to happen. Now, mind you, I was 17, 18 at this time, okay? So roll with it. But I honestly thought those things were going to happen because that's what authors did. They wrote a book, that book sold, and they made money. Anyone in the author sphere now knows how inflated those dreams are. And that's not to say you can't dream big. Dream big, as big as you can, but just have the realistic understanding that you're probably not going to make those goals. Odds are you're not going to get your book made into a movie, okay? Odds are you're not going to be super rich and famous. But you have so many authors. The majority of them still have jobs. They don't just write for a living. And after being an adult, I don't know if I could stay home and just write all the time because I feel like I would never leave my house and I would become a hermit and no one would ever see me. Okay. Slimes. Going in! Ah! Gonna make so many slime blocks. And so I was in college when I started to actually sit down and write. the first draft of what would become Devil's Blood. And I spent that 6 months after you graduate college, before you have to start paying on your student loans, working on the book. I did not work during those months. I just wrote that book, which, I'll be honest, if you ever have a chance to do something like that, do it. Oh, I caught the moss block. I put it back. I don't want it. Because I spent those, I spent that 6 months learning, how to write a book and focusing on writing a book, but I also spent it learning about the industry, reading every blog from anyone calling themselves an agent or an editor, anybody. I read those blogs. I read books about writing. What's... Okay. Cool. Is that like the super duper chest? I think that's the super duper chest up there. Oh, that's a dumb chest. I don't have any blocks. Who goes adventuring without any blocks? Like a loser. Is this the super chest? Yes, okay. I'll get this one. Oh! Just had a trident in it? You know how many times in Minecraft I have organically gotten a trident? Very, very few. That is actually very surprising. Okay, is there no other way out of here? Is this just like a singular little area? Am I dumb? Am I missing it? Yes. Okay. Where was I? Oh, so I started writing the book that would become Devil's Blood. Technically, I remember talking about it with friends in junior college because I was just trying to figure out the plot. But I remember having like a relatively finished rough draft. I mean rough draft. When I graduated college, and I spent the next... Oh, it's underwater. Great. The 6 months after I graduated college, learning about publishing and the industry, just everything that goes into it. That's when I learned about querying and critique partners. No, I don't need it. I will take these candles, though. What's in the pot? Oh, I like the pots. They're just cool. It was such a cool addition. Ooh. That is actually really cool. I've never seen one do that before. How do I get down? That's not what I wanted to do. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the trial chamber here. And looting. Oh, I was really hoping to get 2 of them, but it's okay, I guess. So I finished this rough draft of Devil's Blood in college, right after college, and I spent the next 6 months trying to improve it by getting, what is it called? Beta reader swaps. And I had some decent feedback. Not the feedback I needed. Looking back, I'm pretty sure people were too afraid to tell me that it sucked. So they just didn't. I don't need any of that. But I read all these books about how to write, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I knew everything there was to know about writing. I thought I was the big cheese, I guess is what you can call it. I had a very inflated sense of self-importance. With enough sugar. It's not bad. Why is it creepy? But I revised this book. I edited this book. one kind person finally told me that it wasn't working because I had 75% of the book was introduction. Thank you to whoever that was. Not that you'll ever see this, it's fine. Who knows, maybe you will. What is it? Oh, is that... This is powdered snow. This is powdered snow. Oh no. Ah. It's so sneaky. Oh. Oh, they're like the mushroomy ones. I haven't seen these. They're poisoning me. Yeah. What is up there? I'm getting very distracted. So I legit thought I had a golden egg on my hands. I did not. I had a hot mess express. I had a hot mess with no plot, cluttered character development, and a weird POV. Just to put it, I'm stuck. Put it lightly. It was not ready to query. I was not ready to query. My skills as a writer were not there yet, but I thought they were. So I queried. Yes, I queried a terrible book that was not in any way ready. But I did, because I thought it was, because it was written to the best of my ability at the time. And I ended up querying somewhere around, like, hundreds. At least 100, maybe 2 agents. I queried any agent that represented fantasy. Oh, these, oh no. At least they're not, like, stupid, these skeletons. They're cool looking, though. However, I thought the manuscript would be great, and I wouldn't really come to the conclusion that it wasn't until later. Key 1 and 2. I like how they have like little mushrooms too by the spawner. That's a nice touch. But the version of Devil's Blood that I had back in the summer of 15, 16, well, that's a disappointment. I genuinely thought that it was good enough to publish. Okay, so I've been there. Oh, it's one of those doohickeys. Well, how many like secret little hidden rooms are in here? That's so cool. Oh yeah, it's like way down here. That's actually really cool. Is this like a super one? Yes, okay. Going back to the point that I had here, where I thought that I had a great manuscript on my hands. So I dove headfirst into publishing. What is this? It's a face. Oh, it's supposed to be like the little skeleton dudes. Yeah, that side's all something something. That's cool. But I dove headfirst in these 6 months into the world of publishing. I tried to learn That's suspicious. Is there like another room here? Yes. Oh! Why isn't that convenient? That seems new. Yeah, I should have brought in those little bundle things. That'd make this a lot more. Oh, that's how you're technically supposed to get. It's like a little secret passageway. That's cool. Pointless, but it's cool. And of these hundreds of queries that I sent out, not a single one requested the full manuscript. Not a single one. And that, I already looked at that one, honestly should have been like the red flag. Like, I should have seen that and be like, something's not working. But I was naively not concerned, what word I'm looking for? I was stubbornly assured of myself that clearly these agents just didn't know what they were talking about. I know. Potatoes. Don't really want those. It was like a treasure room? Cool. Taking the potatoes. Empty chest. So I did what a lot of other authors do. What is it? What is it? Riptide. Well, I have a doohickey now. Well, sea fork. What is it called? Trident. But when I didn't hear back from any of these agents, instead of coming to the understanding that it just wasn't working, my manuscript wasn't there yet, or I wasn't there yet as a storyteller, I did what, unfortunately, some authors do when faced in that situation. Oh, it just got up there. But I did what some authors are notoriously known for doing. I self-published. Because I was certain that I had a perfect manuscript. It wasn't. Sorry, I'm focusing. Just got real serious. Oh, I'm dying. Should have taken the potion of strength. Should have taken that potion of regeneration. It sounds like it's sneezing. I don't even know where the blaze spawner was now. It's so twisty-turny in here. Why is there so many? I like potatoes. I feel like that was acceptable. Where was I at? I don't even remember what I was talking about now. Oh, self-publishing. Something. My first book. Try to finish a thought here. But, like, in the months where I spent trying to learn as much as I could about publishing, I learned things. I learned how the industry worked. I learned things about agents and publishing houses, querying process, writing itself. I revised my manuscript. I did the whole beta reader thing. I read several not so good first drafts from other authors and tried to give useful feedback. But kind of at that point, I was feeling very superior. So I was trying. I know I probably said things like, well, agents like this, even though I had never had an agent or worked with one, so I really didn't know. I was just regurgitating all this information that I had read on like blogs and like in magazines that I had subscribed to. Like there was one that I did for a little bit. I actually have copies in a box somewhere over here. But I was giving out agenting and querying advice as if I knew what the hell I was talking about. Like I was an experienced author who had done everything. And I didn't. I was a new author. I was just starting out. I had no idea. I had no experience. But I thought that I was in a position to give advice to other people. Which sometimes, like if someone's just asking a very basic question that I knew the answer to, or if they Googled it, I knew what answer Google would give them. But I was in no shape to give advice to other people. But I did. And I see other authors doing this, and it's just like, I know what you're doing there. I see what you're doing. And that's kind of why I tell authors now that when you see other authors online or anywhere trying to give you writing advice or publishing advice or editing advice, any kind of publishing, writing advice at all, take it with a grain of salt because you don't know really what experience they have unless they're like an established author that you know. Like if Brandon Sanderson read my book and gave me feedback, I would take it. Like I would value his feedback much more than I would some stranger on the internet who I never heard of who has one book published that has 10 reviews on Amazon. Their advice probably not as valuable because what experience do they have, kind of a thing? Or if they don't have any books at all, that doesn't mean that you're not a good author or like you never will be, but just humility goes a long way. And that's a lesson I've had to learn. And it's just one of those lessons that I think human beings in general probably have to learn. So I don't think it's like an author specific kind of a lesson. And that just might be a phase of like being an author or wanting to be an author, just getting that big headedness. And I'm being completely honest, it kind of comes and goes for me. Like sometimes I'll feel good about myself, and other times it's like you read a book that's so amazing. Like I recently read The Foxglove King. Absolutely amazing. I listened to the audiobook while doing other things, and I absolutely fell into the story. It was so amazing. It drew me in, kept me in. I ended up running out of audiobook hours, bought more audiobook hours instead of waiting for them to refresh in the next month. I use Spotify. So I could listen to book two. I bought more hours so I could listen to book two. Ran out of hours about 3 hours from the end of book two. Couldn't wait to refresh my audiobook hours. Didn't want to pay $12 for more, so I just bought book one and two so I could have them on my shelf. But I went through this phase of, I'm never going to write anything as good. I'm not this good. My books will never draw anyone in like this. I went through that phase, bottomed out. But I think that's also very normal for, in general, when it comes to like writing advice. Always take the writing advice you see with that grain of salt because you never really know what that author is doing, what they really know, what they're just regurgitating. Because I remember being in that same place where I thought I knew everything. And I definitely see other authors, young authors, doing that exact same thing. And they say, you gotta fake it till you make it. That, I don't have any advice on that. Never mind. What do I not need in here? I could probably use a shield. Typically don't use a shield, but where's the treasury thingies? Oh, how do I get out of here? Oh no. Would have been here, so would have had to come this way. Okay, there's the ladder. Found it! When I was working on Devil's Blood and when I was trying to get it published and when I decided I wanted to be a published author and all that stuff, there were some very crucial mistakes that I made. And the first one that I recognize more now than I did was that I was not reading nearly enough. The candle. Missed it. Dollars candles all over. But anyway, so I made some very crucial mistakes. Kind of like the one where I don't know how to get out of here. It's not this way. This is the way to the beds and the tree place. But the first crucial mistake was that I wasn't reading nearly enough. Because when I wrote Devil's Blood, make all the candles come on when you get closer. But I wasn't reading enough, so I didn't know what genre Devil's Blood really was. Oh, thought there might be something like hiding in here. Nope. Okay. That's fine. How do I get out of here? Here's the water. I remember being in here, seeing the water. Oh, I lost my train of thought again. The crucial mistakes I made. The first one was not reading in my genre. So I didn't know exactly what genre Devil's Blood was because I wasn't reading, so I wasn't basing it off like what I liked to read because I didn't know what I liked to read. I mean, I was reading, but my reading consists of mostly fan fiction at the time. Which, is not bad. That's not a bad thing. There's some very enthralling fan fictions out there, okay? I will defend it. I wasn't reading enough to say what genre it was. It was just general fantasy. And like versus now, I know what I like to read and what I like to write. Fantasy. But mostly high fantasy. Where did I come from? Or no, it was the room with not the sponges, what are they called? Squishies, the squishies. Slimes. They are slimes. This one. This is where it came from. Up there. Yeah. So, crucial mistakes. I wasn't reading. I was not reading in my genre. I did not have comp titles because I wasn't reading. So when I went to query all of these agents, I had no idea what subgenre of fantasy was, so I just put fantasy. And there were some cases where I remember putting urban fantasy because I didn't know what urban fantasy was. Like looking back, I could have made the genre of Devil's Blood a little bit easier. It's more gaslamp fantasy than anything else, but it didn't fit nicely into like a well-selling genre, put it that way. But I was very proud of this book. And so when I didn't get any positive responses, rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, it hurt. It stung. It was very, painful in like a way that like your crush going out with your best friend, kind of painful. But like on a deeper level because it felt like it was a rejection of you because that was my first book that I was querying. That was my first encounter with that kind of rejection. There's a helicopter. It's 7:30 on a Friday night. That's not good. Usually the only way a helicopter goes over my house in the middle of nowhere is if someone is getting transferred to one of the bigger hospitals because it's an emergency. Air evac, that's what it's called. Ugh, somebody's probably having a very bad Friday night. But I called Devil's Blood adult fantasy. It is kinda, but as I learned later on, I read more young adult fantasy. I didn't read adult fantasy, so it reads a little bit more like young adult fantasy, even though the characters are older. So it was all over the place, alright? It wasn't an easy to market book. I didn't know where my audience was. I didn't know what comp titles. I didn't know where fantasy fans were because I was like, oh, anybody that likes fantasy will like this book. That's not how it works. Just like saying anyone that likes fantasy is gonna like Dakatar. That's not true. And like, now I read as much as I possibly can. Let me put all this stuff away here. Trident. I'm so excited about the trident. I am just gonna make... I don't want to make all those pots. I don't want to make 38 pots. That's a terrible, terrible idea. But I read a lot more. And because I write fantasy, I read a lot of fantasy. I also read outside of my genre sometimes when I feel like it. But my next several books that I did were more young adult fantasy because they are more akin to what I was reading. What was I doing? I was doing pots. Pats. I was doing the pats. Let's just make a lot of pots. I don't know what I'm going to do with those pots yet, but I want to do something with those pots. Bouncy blocks. And I don't want to say that Devil's Blood was poorly edited. I didn't get it edited. And there's only so much an editor can do with a poorly written book. I mean, they're just going to make sure there's no typos in it, I guess. I'm going to be honest, it was poorly written. My skill was not there yet. I thought it was. So when that inevitable rejection came, when no one wanted to publish my book, it hurt. It was like heartbreak. But then I turned around, I was like, you know what? I'm going to self-publish. So I did. And I did not sell a lot of copies. Because the second crucial mistake that he did was that, well, I guess the second crucial mistake was that I self-published a book that wasn't ready to be self-published because I thought it was good enough and it wasn't. But the next crucial mistake that I did was that I did not get a nice cover. I made my own cover through Create Space's little cover designer that they used to have. Of course, Create Space has since combined with KDP. Create Space used to be for physical books and KDP was for ebooks. They have since combined so that they're both just KDP. But I made my own cover. I thought it looked fine. Yeah, it wasn't fine, but it's neither higher. It's been a long day. It was neither here nor there. And I eventually bought a nicer cover because at the time I was uh, very recently employed in a part-time job and I was not making money. Like $12 an hour part-time. It was not a lot of money, okay? And I had like a student loan coming, so like I did not have money to spend on editor. Like $600 for an editor, I couldn't do that, so I didn't. In like what was this 2015 probably when I would have been querying all of these agents. I like 2015 BB was heartbroken, okay? Me now, like this manuscript that I'm much more proud of, that I really believe in, that I know is better written. I've gotten several rejections for it, and it's just like it doesn't hurt because I am much more conscious of how the industry works, and that the rejection isn't so much of this book is garbage, but it's more because the agent needs to believe in the manuscript. They need to feel strongly about it enough to work with it and read it with you and go over it and edit it if they need to. But also, probably more important than all of those is they need to be able to sell it to a publishing house. So if they have a manuscript that they're like, oh, this is cool, but they have no idea where they're going to sell that manuscript, there's no point because like an agent's entire job revolves around or relies on books making money, and they need books that they know are going to sell, and they need books that they know are going to sell to the publisher who knows what sells. It's money. It's a money thing. It's a business, and I'm more aware of that, so it's not as painful. It's not really painful at all, to be honest. Getting all that rejection in 2015 was devastating. It was emotional rock bottom. So I was like, I'm going to self-publish anyway. That was my attitude. Direct quote. And I did. And it didn't do very well, but I wasn't. After getting over that initial bombshell of it not selling very well, I just kept writing because if I don't write, I'll explode. True story, clinically proven. The writers that don't write, they bottle it up, they explode. Despite the overall failure that my first book was, well, my first 4 books really, because I self-published 3 in the Devil's Blood series and then another kind of an oddball steampunk pirate romance. It sounds a lot more exciting than it is. Don't worry about it. Don't look into it. It's not very good. It's been one of my goals to go back and like revise it just to clean it up as best I could. I've since revised Devil's Blood several times, so it's much better than it was. Like just the writing in general, cleaning up just like the tidbits that just suck. I've learned a lot about publishing, about writing, about just the industry itself as a business, and I figured out more of what I want out of my author career, which is just to share these stories that I love with other people who love stories. Because I read, or I really kind of search for stories that just draw me in, that I can't stop thinking about, that just are so engaging that like I stay up to finish them or read them, whether it's a game or a movie, TV show, books. And I want to share that kind of experience with others who are also looking for those books that they just can't stop thinking about and that they need to finish. They need book two after they finish book one, and they need book three halfway through book two. They need them both. They need it. Like, I don't want to be the next J.K. Rowling or James Patterson or Sarah J. Maas. I don't need to be the next them. Like, I don't need that insane success and money. I don't need it. Like, I'm financially stable, knock on wood. Like, I am blessed financially, and I don't have to worry about bouncing my card when I go get gas. I mean, I have a day job. My books are not paying for that. My books are not making a lot of money, I'll be honest. I figured out where I want to go with my books, where I want to go with my author career. And like these past 8 years that I've been in the publishing game, I've changed. My writing has changed. My goals have changed. How I look at the industry has changed. It's no longer like this magical wonderland. It's more, it's a business. And I'm an adult. Yeah, so that's what I've been thinking about today, is just how my writing has changed. But no, that was my little author talk today. I feel like I started out really good talking about my book, how it sucked, but I kept going. And, every book that I write gets a little bit better. Like the books I have out now, like Stars and Bones, Heart of Stone, they're much better written and thought out and plotted than like Devil's Blood. And like the books that I have not yet published, that are in the works, I think are much better than even Stars and Bones. The one that I've have out with a few agents right now, or I've queried. I know it's not like anything like super serious. It's really interesting actually, because I was going through it and I noticed that like the first 3 chapters were really kind of slugging along. Like, this is the only instance of a prologue that I have, but in my mind there's a purpose. But anyway, so like the first 3 chapters, I'm including the prologue in those first 3 chapters. So technically the prologue in chapter 1 and chapter 2 just dragged. I was really feeling kind of down because I'm like, man, no wonder no one ever requested this, because like, who was going to get past the prologue, because it's such a drag to get through. I went back and I probably cut 1,000 or so words just from the first 3 chapters and reworked it a little bit. So there's just less cluttered world building, which is what it was. It was just a lot of clutter, not a lot of action. But once you got into like chapter 3, the story just snowballed and just kept going. And I was so amazed that, like, because I wanted to keep reading, even though I knew what happens. But it was just so incredible to see how my writing has changed. And even things that I am writing fresh now, just how much better like a mindset I have for like plot and story structure and like tie-ins and like just all like the little moving parts. And I would not have gotten to this point had I not self-published that first terrible, not ready book. But I did. And I kept going. And I kept going. And I kept publishing and I kept writing. That's my piece of advice for any author who wants to publish but doesn't think they can, or they have published and it didn't do very well and they're disheartened. Keep going. Keep writing, keep learning, keep reading. Keep on trudging along. Because if you give up, well, you'll never get there. But if you keep trying, you will. Like, every book that I wrote made me a better writer, made me a better author, made me a better business-minded person when it comes to books. And every book that I read makes me a better author, makes me a better writer, makes me a better story structure analysis, or what do they call those? The person who does the analysis? Analyst? whatever. That's not the important part of this whole little talk we're having. A good rule of writing, if you want to be an author: write, read, keep going. Read, write, repeat. But until next time, when I have something else authorly to talk about, I hope all of your books for the next 2 months are 5-star reads, or like 4.5 maybe, and that you enjoy them all thoroughly, and that you find a new author that you absolutely love and can't wait for the next book to come out. Oh, I just love this. Just love this going. That's fine. Maybe next time we'll build a little bit more on this nonsense castle that I have going here. Fort Nonsense.